everybody. I'm Dr. Adam Mathews with Mathews Counseling, and all this month we are talking about how to fight back against loneliness. There is a epidemic of loneliness that has been well documented, particularly for young adults but for everybody really since the pandemic. And so we're talking about different topics around the subject of loneliness and how to fight back against loneliness. And one of the biggest ways that we know we can fight back against loneliness is by finding joy when you are single, because being single, there's a lot of pressure on to have a relationship. And when you're single, loneliness is one of the chief places that it can take root and really become a problem for you. And joining me today is Kimberly Knight. She's a licensed clinical social work associate, and she's one of our therapists at Mathews Counseling. Kimberly, hi, welcome. I'm so glad you're here.
Hey, hello everyone. And yes, it feels great to be here. Thank you for having me about this really important topic that I think is going to be great to discuss today.
Yeah. So tell me, first of all, I mentioned that idea of the pressures of being single, of singlehood. Tell me a little bit about what you've either seen in clients or you see out there that kind of really ramps up the pressure on being single.
I definitely have found that in my client work that I've seen a lot of people struggle with anxiety and depression when it comes to singlehood and feeling overwhelmed. We just got through the holiday season and we just had
Mm,
where people were gathering together. They're seeing lots of things on social media, people taking pictures and family
yeah.
portraits and gathering with loved ones. And it was a lot of overwhelming challenges some of my clients I've seen before were having
Yeah.
with that. So it compelled me to really want to talk about this subject matter because I felt like
Yeah.
it's something we don't get a chance to talk about the positivity of singlehood.
Yes, because yes, and we also just got through Valentine's Day, which is
Yes.
can be a really frustrating time
Mhm.
for when you are single, and it does really ramp up the pressure. Why do you think the pressure exists for that creates a lot of problems when we're single? Because it seems to me to be a lot about expectation and what those expectations are out there when it comes to that phase of life or whenever that phase may happen again, right? Whenever we are single. Like, tell me a little bit about what do you see out there as like just the expectations and why does that create so much pressure and anxiety and depression?
I love this question. Thank you so much for asking it. I think a lot of it is just societal pressures that being partnered is better than being single. And this
Yes.
also, yes, this concept of that you couldn't possibly be happy if you are a single person, where I totally don't believe in that kind of theology. I believe that you can have joy in singlehood or partnership. And I think there's pressures that are put on where if you meet someone, they're like, okay, are you dating? If you're single, are you dating? Then you date someone, are you exclusive? Are you in a relationship? Then you're in a relationship. Are you getting engaged? Are you
Yeah.
getting married? Are you buying a home? Are you having a family? It's like it's a
Yeah.
never-ending cycle
Yes.
of expectation from others. But then the flip side of it is others don't like to usually talk about themselves. So it's a lot of escapism
Mm,
into other
yes.
people too that I see just from the work that I do and experiences I've seen personally. So I want to bring light to joy in singlehood because I think it's important to self-love is the first love. It's a value system that
Mm,
my family taught me very young, and it's something I've carried with me over the years. And it's something even in any relationship I've been in. I'm widowed, so I've been married before and I've been partnered before as well. So I can talk to those experiences. But also, I've always found joy whenever I was single because of that foundation of self-love from my family.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit because that shifts into kind of that piece of wanting to, when we have people or clients or anyone is experiencing that high pressure system, because I think it's important to recognize, before we get into the solutions of it and where to find that, because I do want to talk about that joy, I think it's important to recognize that those pressures a lot of times are external pressures that are coming from other people that kind of get stuck inside of us. Like that we take on those external pieces, those external pressures that then become part of who we are. And we don't know why. It can be hard to understand why we're unhappy, why we are experiencing that burden of loneliness if we don't understand that they're coming from this outside in type of perspective rather than naturally coming from inside out. Even though we may want to
Oh,
be
yeah.
partnered, we may want that, we can still want that and still reject the pressure of what's next, what is the next phase. You can only be happy if type of
Exactly.
mentality. Yeah. But I love your phrase that you're using. The first love is self-love. Tell me a little bit
Yes.
about that. And you're saying your parents instilled that in you. Tell me a little bit
Yeah,
about
that was
that.
really big. My parents were both nurses. One was mental health, one was palliative care, working with cancer patients. So they worked high stress jobs. So one thing they were very big on is the idea of self-care and taking care of yourself. And even though I'm a child of the 80s, given my
Yeah,
age here,
me too.
is that, yeah. And so my parents were really big on the idea of taking a little bit of time for yourself to do things that make you happy and bring you joy, but also not allowing your relationship to consume you. So very
Mm,
young, they taught me about your self-value and self-worth is not based on who you date and if you get married and if you have
yeah,
children. It was more so, are you a good citizen? Are you a good person? Are you a kind-spirited person? Setting value systems of love and caring into me and taking care of myself more so than my value and worth was only based on who I'm partnered to, which
yeah.
I really appreciate them making sure that was
Well,
there for me.
and that was pretty radical for the 80s because that wasn't
Yeah.
it wasn't super trendy back then. There was probably even more so pressure
Yeah.
to be in a relationship back then. So that's really forward thinking of your parents there. And so tell me a little bit about what are the practices? Like how did you cultivate that? Because I think I hear a lot of people talk about self-love and I think and I agree, but I also hear a lot of feedback from clients saying, "How do I do that? How do I cultivate self-love if it's a feeling that I don't have?"
Yeah, and that's something I'm so glad we talked about. So I really at a younger age, like even in my teens, started going on solo dates.
Oh,
So
yeah.
some of my friends would go on dates with their significant others or partners, but there would be times I wasn't partnered to anyone. So I would just go on a solo date myself. I didn't stop me from going to see that movie I wanted to go see or going to be able to go to a restaurant I wanted to try or
Mm,
a fun park I wanted to go to. And even though I come from a pretty large extended family, I'm an only child, but I have lots of cousins. Still, there were times where I was used to myself playing by myself and things like that as a
mm,
child. So I was used to like alone time. So I
yeah.
was fine with going out on solo dates for myself and also just doing things that I enjoy doing. And then when, of course, it elevated as you get older and the budget gets better, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You go to the spa, you go,
That's right.
you go to different
You,
traveling places you
taking
love.
trips, yeah.
Exactly. You get to do a lot more fun things as you get into your adulthood and then after post college or post education. You get into these like different realms of how that self-care looks. But it really
Yeah.
started with just like even buying my favorite like toiletries or pajamas, even something as simple
Yeah.
as that.
Yeah, I
Hmm.
think the idea of solo dates is really great. I did that a little bit I still do it now actually, but I did it in early on in the early 2000s. I can remember the time I was in Dallas, Texas, didn't know anybody, was starting my first kind of big boy job right out of college. And I remember I had a therapist that told me that as well. And I remember the movie wasn't so hard, right? Going to the movie by myself wasn't so hard. Going to the restaurant, however, was super hard the first
That's a
time.
tough one.
That's a tough one. Eating by yourself in a restaurant can be super tough. But I tell you the thing that happened, I don't know if this has happened to you as well. The
Mhm.
more I did it, the more I came to enjoy it. And I
Yes.
wanted those experiences, including the solo trips, like that
Hmm.
kind of that elevating, but it had to start with learning how to be okay in those environments where I was by myself and figuring
Hmm.
out how to enjoy it. Was that a similar process for you?
Very
What do
much
you,
so. Yes. Thank you for sharing that. Mine was definitely very similar. The restaurant thing was a little tricky at first because back then we weren't as attached to our cell phones or
yeah.
electronics. Now you walk into a restaurant, you may see plenty of people
Well, people
sitting by
always on their
themselves,
phone.
but they're
Yeah.
on their phone or electronic device. But back then, early 2000s, yeah, I would just go to a restaurant and I also would meet some really cool people though. There were times where I'd meet
Yeah.
really interesting people at coffee shops or different restaurants, and I was like, oh, okay. This is great. It's not like you're feeling completely isolated, but yeah, it was tough the very first time. Yeah.
I think just what you said too, like the idea that you give yourself opportunity to meet people, and I'm not talking about it in the romantic sense, but
Right.
you fighting back against loneliness sometimes means putting yourself in positions where just being around people, right? And that
Hmm.
feeds that connection piece, that energy piece that comes with being in those spaces. But I love that idea of dating yourself first. The other thing, and you mentioned this in your blog, the idea of getting to you, that process helps you to get to know yourself. Can you draw
Yes.
that connection for me a little bit between
Yeah.
dating yourself a little bit and also learning more about who you are?
Yeah, something I like to ask clients before is when this topic comes up is, are you dateable? Would you date yourself? Would
Hmm.
you date you? And then the question comes up of maybe not or yes. Then it's discovering, like, through this process of solo dating, you realize things that you like or don't like. You may realize that you prefer certain restaurants over others. You might like more intimate restaurants versus more crowded corporate level restaurants that are a little bit louder. You may find that you like going to special events in your community, or you may find that there's certain music content that you like, or concerts, or music halls, or things you like to explore. It's about learning a lot about yourself so then when you do meet a partner, the self-confidence is building. Because
Hmm.
now when they ask you, so what do you like to do for fun? When that common question comes up, you're easy to be like, oh, I like to do this and this around the city or
Yes.
whatever.
Yeah, I think that's growing the things that are interesting about you too. There
Bringing
is
them
there
forward.
yeah, that just inherently makes you more attractive to other people. And I know we're disconnecting that idea. We're not trying to move people toward dating or toward
Right.
romantic relationships if that's not
Absolutely.
something they're interested in, because we're talking about being the joy of that. But it does
Mhm.
cultivate that sense of I know who I am, and like I think this. You tell me if you think this is true as well. What that brings to mind for me as well is that it helps me to know better if the person that if I do start to date somebody or I do have interest in somebody, I know whether they're a good match for me or not. I know better if
Exactly.
they're a good match for me or not. I spend less time, I waste less time with people that are not good, not really good matches for me. Do you make that connection as well?
I do. I definitely make that connection. I think then you become more self-aware and you're more assertive and you're
Mm,
more attentive to your own needs and wants and desires. And because it's really important to be able to vocalize that a lot of the work that I do is helping teach people how to vocalize what they need, want, and
mm,
desire.
I
And
love
that's
that.
the thing, once they are partnered, or even when they're not partnered, they're trying to figure it out. And even if you decide that being single is where you would like to stay, finding that joyfulness in your singlehood, a peace of mind and solitude, and understanding that it's beautiful to still be single and that it shouldn't feel like this complex pressure to be partnered to someone to have self-worth or self-value, but that is your
Yeah.
choice to do.
Yeah. Oh, that's see that I love that too because that is that ability for these things to be choices that we make rather than things that we're pressured into or things that we have
Mm.
to do or things that we should do. Even just any turning any of those choices or any of those big life decisions into more intentional choices allows us to own them and find more joy in them no matter what it is, right? One of the last things you talk about in your blog that I want to get to before we're done is the idea of that of building your self-confidence and how that can bring a lot of joy into your singleness. Tell me a little bit about that. Like how do we go about building self-confidence in a way that brings about joy where we're at?
Yeah, so in my blog, I talk about identify your strengths. This is a time period where you can identify your strengths, your areas that you see growth in yourself, and bringing positive reinforcement to when these negative thoughts try to occur. One of the exercises I've personally done for myself years ago was a letter to my past self. And that
Oh,
letter, writing that letter as a journal exercise to really just see, wow, look how far you've come in certain areas. And
yes.
areas still that may need a little bit of improvement, great, we can work there. But it's also recognizing that there's been a shift, a pivot, and setting realistic goals and always be open to explore more resources that are out
Yeah.
here. But definitely developing a good self-care plan is definitely something too you'll see in my blog that I talk about.
Yes. Yeah, I
Hmm.
think you do a good job of kind of listing those self-care pieces and some really good ideas about because self-care does get over talked a little bit
Yes.
with that idea. And so being able to figure out how to take care of yourself in the midst of being single, I think sometimes we rely too much on other people to really take care of ourselves. And so it can be really helpful to have a list of things that we do intentionally to really take care of ourselves, which also then builds confidence, right? When we know how,
Yes.
like I talk about it in terms of we have to keep the promises to ourselves first, the things that we
Mhm.
promise ourselves that we're going to do. So when we're taking care of ourselves, we are keeping promises to ourselves that to our body, to our physical needs, our emotional needs, our spiritual needs, all of that. When we do that, we are really keeping promises to ourselves that we can then trust ourselves, right? Which is
Yes.
the root of confidence is being able to trust myself to be able to handle any situation that comes up. And I think that connection then helps us. Singleness isn't as scary anymore because
Yeah.
it means that we can take care of ourselves and we can then choose to be partnered if we want to, if we find the person that we want to be partnered to, but it's not a requirement of our life. And that really is something that kind of helps generate a lot of joy.
Yes, absolutely. I completely agree with that. And also, a lot of pressure is put on singles. Sometimes people overstep their boundaries with you, and you have to set personal boundaries because they
Yeah.
look at it as though you have all the time in the world, all the resources in the world, because you're single.
Yes.
So it's, oh, you have time to babysit my kids for me, or you have time to let me borrow money from you, or you have time for me to do these things. And it's as a single person, you have to set healthy personal boundaries as well.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think, too, just one caveat I'll add as we wrap up here is this idea that we're not suggesting that it's not that you're not, that when you're single, that a desire to be partnered is not okay, right?
Right.
Because it
Correct.
totally is. It
Mhm.
absolutely is an okay desire to want to be partnered, to want to date, to want to have somebody in your life. I think what we're trying to say is just not it. You don't. It doesn't have to generate an
Mm-mm.
oppressive loneliness, right?
No,
It
not
doesn't
at
have
all.
to generate something that says I can't enjoy what I have. I can't be grateful for where I'm at. I can't
Mhm.
find joy in what I am. And that, I think that's really great. Kimberly, any last things you really want to make sure people know about this topic as we wrap up today?
Yeah, I just want people to know. I hope they enjoy the blog post, enjoy this interview, and that I hope they find some pieces of joy in being single and enjoy the fact of the journey of what it is being single
Yes.
and not just focus so much on what I don't have, but appreciate where you are and where you can go to. So, all the
Love
best
that.
to all my singles out there. You're
Love
out
it.
there. Yes. And spring is almost here, literally
That's
tomorrow.
right. Almost. Almost. Yes. It's happening tomorrow. I love that.
Yeah.
We know that this is a complicated topic. We boiled it down to some basic things that we want to share with you. But if you
Yeah.
need more help, if you need to unpack these ideas, we have a lot of therapists that are available, like Kimberly or others, who can help you work through those topics. If that's something that you're interested in, you can get an appointment. You can request an appointment online at mathewscounseling.net, and we can have you an appointment within 24 hours. Please reach out that way and get connected. And as always, we'll be back. We're continuing to talk about loneliness this month, so we'll have some more topics coming up soon. Thanks, Kimberly.
Thank you.